I'm here to talk about my story with this guy who, for some reason, believes he's a woman. He's a politician from Brazil, and he was the most voted woman in the country in 2020. Well, his name is Felipe, aka Erica Hilton, and I'm gonna talk about my case because now apparently I'm a criminal or something. At least that's what the Sao Paulo state think about me. So in 2020, this person was elected as the most voted woman for Sao Paulo's chamber, and also the most voted woman in the country. And actually also the only woman to make the list of the top 10 most voted candidates in the country in history. So he was the only woman in this list ever in the country's history. It's very important for our national politics and law in Brazil because it's probably the most stupid one. And because of that, the most serious one. I never heard of any case like my case. And of course, I know that in Brazil, as a radical feminist, I'm the most known radical feminist in the country. So of course, everything would come to my head and these guys hate me because people are listening to me and I'm pretty sure I make sense. So it happens a lot for a long time, but this was like the most absurd thing. And now some information for you, Anna. In Brazil, everyone is allowed to change their sex on their birth certificate, and there's no criteria. And you can choose, you can just put that your sex is non-binary in your birth certificate. So we don't have reliable data about feminicide or domestic violence or sexual violence anymore in the country. So yeah, for me personally, I would say this is a problem. And also, in our law, and I'll talk a bit about it, the only kind of discrimination that is 100% legal in the country is misogyny. Is the only kind of discrimination that is not a crime. So things are wild in Brazil right now. And actually, what happens is that our Supreme Court equiparated transphobia to racism, which is one of the most horrible crimes we have in our penal code and in our law, of course, because of our history of slavery. But they just equiparated one thing to the other, but it wasn't like the right process, I would say. It's too complicated to explain in English, but in our law, there's no crime if there's not a previous law which would define it. So we don't have any laws defining transphobia. This means that transphobia is not a crime in Brazil. But I was charged with 5 counts of racism by Sao Paulo state for saying that the most voted woman in the country is a man. That was all I said. So yeah, as I said, it's one of the most horrible crimes in our law. It has a special law, like we have our penal code and we have like a special law for racism, again, because of our history, because we owe this to Black people in the country and they just equiparated it to transphobia because they understand this is a kind of social racism. And yeah, in Brazil, pretty much everything, I mean, I think it's everywhere, but in Brazil, really, it's completely out of control. And like everything is transphobia. If I say I'm a woman, I'm being transphobic. If I say I have my period, I'm being transphobic. If I say my name is Isabel, it's probably transphobic too, because it ends with an A. I don't know, like things are too much right now. And yeah, so basically, the whole process of turning transphobia into a crime in the country was completely illegal and it breaks basic principles of our constitution.